the white world howled without end. Snow driven by Velzard's power swept across the land in blinding waves, carrying so much magical energy that the air itself seemed frozen solid. Trees and flowers had already become motionless statues beneath the frost. Sound disappeared almost as quickly as sight, swallowed by the storm until even a voice from a few steps away could feel impossibly distant. Yet within that endless white, two women stood calmly together, Testarossa and Velgrind. Velgrind had arrived through the separate body she had left behind in this land, her blue hair stirring gently despite the violence surrounding them. Her expression held the faint amusement of someone who had walked into a dangerous situation and found it more interesting than frightening. Testarossa, meanwhile, remained perfectly composed. The destructive power she had unleashed lingered around her like an invisible threat, something capable of annihilating far more than the battlefield itself. From a distance, the sight might have seemed almost elegant. Mas knew better. He remained inside the barrier with Suka, both of them surrounded by the crushing pressure of the nihilistic world. His hands held the barrier together through sheer concentration. Every second felt like gripping the reins of a raging beast that wanted to tear itself free. For someone who stood among the strongest beings beneath the primordials, it was humiliating. Worse, there was nothing he could do about it. Suka's breathing was shallow. She had lost all sense of direction the moment they entered the white world. Her magic sense, normally reliable enough to reveal the presence and movement of others, had become almost useless. The blizzard erased everything. Testarossa might have been standing close enough to touch, yet Suka could barely know she was there. Velgrind's arrival had been even harder to perceive. Mas understood why. An ordinary person would have died almost instantly. Even an A-rank adventurer would struggle to survive for more than a few hours. Here, survival depended upon the barrier he maintained, and more importantly, upon Testarossa deciding not to release the void completely. For now, the nihilistic world remained in its first stage. The true annihilation had yet to begin. That knowledge offered little comfort, but Suka slowly realized something else. Her presence here mattered. Reinforcements attempting to cross the white world could easily lose their way, and even powerful executives might never reach this location. Suka, however, could serve as a living landmark. With her position established, direct teleportation would remain possible. She did not need to fight. She only needed to remain alive. The realization eased something inside her. While Mas and Suka waited beneath the barrier, Testarossa and Velgrind continued discussing the wider crisis. Velgrind had come partly to determine whether the disturbances truly originated from Velzard's own will, but she also carried news from elsewhere. Damargania had become another battlefield. Milim had unleashed Dragon Nova inside the Heavenly Passage Tower, while Velgrind reinforced the devastation with the Star Guardian barrier. The immediate destruction had been contained, but the crisis itself remained. The great gate connecting heaven and earth had opened, and Ivaraje's advance was drawing closer. Elsewhere, Milim had moved toward Sarion, most likely targeting the Divine Tree. Feldway had gone there as well. The world was beginning to fracture under simultaneous threats. At Luminous's call, heroes from across the world were gathering along the Lubelius border. Masayuki stood among them as their representative, but distance made reinforcements painfully slow. Velgrind knew her strength would be needed there. Then Guy's thought transmission reached them through the blizzard. Even while fighting Velzard in the sky, he had been listening. He had sensed the same irregularity Testarossa had noticed, the presence of someone behind Velzard. He also understood that Ivarade's arrival would soon force his attention elsewhere. His capable subordinates were needed on the larger battlefield, not wasting their time guarding Leon's territory. Testarossa accepted the necessity of moving resources. Rain and Mizari would take over the protective barrier. Mas would assist them. Velgrind's separate body then dispersed, leaving behind only the faint residue of her power. A few seconds later, a transfer gate opened. Rain and Mizari stepped through. The cold struck Rain immediately. Even a primordial could feel it. Her usual reluctance toward work surfaced almost at once, but Mizari's disapproving presence beside her killed the complaint before it could grow. Rain reluctantly took hold of Mas's barrier and began reinforcing it. What happened next surprised everyone. Mas had expected assistance. Instead, Mazzari began adjusting the structure of the barrier, while Rain seized control of its magical flow with astonishing precision. The unbearable sensation of wrestling against the barrier's raging power suddenly eased. The pressure vanished from Moss's hands, as though someone had lifted an enormous weight from his shoulders. He stared. Rain's control was extraordinary. Moss possessed slightly more magical energy than she did, and under ordinary circumstances, he might even have believed that careful preparation could give him the advantage. His ultimate technique, Infinite Eater, was powerful enough to destroy an opponent whose energy did not exceed his own. But watching Rain manipulate the barrier made him understand the difference. Raw power was meaningless beside mastery. Rain herself had noticed the numerical difference and taken it personally. Her pride had been quietly wounded by the possibility that one of Testarossa's subordinates possessed more magical energy than her. What began as casual curiosity became a matter of personal honor. For Rain, this was war. She poured herself fully into the protective barrier. Mazzari followed with equal precision, removing vulnerabilities and adjusting the structure so Rain could move freely within it. Together, they transformed the barrier. The devastation reaching the surrounding land became negligible, while Suka's protection became nearly perfect. Testarossa watched the stabilization with quiet satisfaction. Everything had fallen into place. The barrier was secure, the survivors were safe, the disturbances elsewhere were being addressed. Only one question remained. Testarossa lifted her gaze toward the sky. Now who is hiding? Far above, Guy and Velzard continued their battle. Neither showed signs of exhaustion. Neither had yet become serious. Their attacks crossed the frozen sky with enough power to destroy ordinary beings instantly. Yet each understood the other's movements so completely that even apparently fatal techniques were neutralized before they could land. Guy conserved his own energy by drawing upon the magical power scattered through the atmosphere, patiently searching for an opening while refusing to waste strength against Velzard's near-impenetrable defenses. Velzard had changed. That was what troubled him. The woman he remembered had been impatient, proud, and prone to forcing battles toward the outcome she wanted. Now she waited. She watched. She allowed the frozen world itself to destroy the traps Guy created. Someone had influenced her. Guy did not believe she was being controlled. Something more subtle was happening, and Testarossa had discovered the same truth. The connection reached far into Velzard's past. Long ago, she had challenged Guy because Veldanava acknowledged him. Despite possessing overwhelming magical energy and the ultimate skill, Gabriel, she had only managed a draw. To Velzard, that had felt like defeat. Afterward, she began watching Guy. She admired his strength, his ruthlessness, his kindness, his strange fairness. Then Rudra appeared. Guy fought him seriously and smiled. Velzard saw the difference immediately. Against her, Guy had always restrained himself, treating the battle almost like a game. Against Rudra, he gave everything. The realization awakened something Velzard had never properly understood: jealousy. She wanted Guy to look at her the way he looked at Rudra. She wanted to stand beside him. She wanted to become strong enough to earn that place. That desire transformed her ultimate skill, turning the king of patience, Gabriel, into the king of jealousy, Leviathan. Yet Velzard concealed the change and remained beside Guy, waiting for the opportunity to fight him seriously. Feldway's offer provided exactly that. She followed him because it promised the one thing she had desired for ages: a battle in which Guy would finally stop holding back. But Feldway was not the only secret hidden behind Velzard. Long ago, she had saved an existence that had been reduced to an astral body after losing both its material and spiritual forms. He became her collaborator and advisor, fascinated by the dragon species and willing to serve her ambitions. Now that collaborator had finally been exposed. A slender young man emerged before Testarossa. His bluish turtleneck contrasted sharply with his bright red suit. White shoes trimmed in gold completed the elegant, almost theatrical appearance. One eye glowed red, the other burned blue. Testarossa recognized him immediately. Twilight Valentine, the king of dusk, the divine ancestor of vampires, the ancestor of humanity, a confidant of Veldanava who had created countless races in pursuit of his master's wishes. His accomplishments were legendary, so were his atrocities. His experiments had crossed every moral boundary imaginable. Those who knew what he had done regarded him as something worse than a monster, a being whose curiosity had long ago abandoned compassion. He smiled at Testarossa as though they were old acquaintances. Their eyes met. Their smiles remained. The killing intent between them became almost tangible. Testarossa's anger sharpened when Twilight ridiculed the Primordials and, by extension, Rimuru. Her decision became absolute. Twilight had supposedly been annihilated by Luminous's spirit disintegration. There should have been nothing left to resurrect. He also appeared to possess a pseudo-dragon body. Yet Testarossa knew how extraordinarily difficult it was to create and control separate bodies. Even Velgrin's ability was an exceptional rarity. So how had Twilight survived? There was only one way to find out. Testarossa separated her emotions from her judgment and studied every movement he made. She would not guess. She would not assume. She would see the truth herself. And once she understood it, Twilight Valentine would not survive the encounter.